All right, so we're going to start first by talking about who Rock the Bells is. Have anybody here heard of Rock the Bells? Some, yeah. All right, we got some fans in the house.
No, it very much is a hip hop brand. I'll bring this way down here. Rock the Bells was founded by LL Cool J 5 years ago. He was driving in his car listening to something called Backspin Radio on Sirius XM, and he didn't like it. And he didn't feel like it really represented him or his peers from that era. So as one does, if they're LL Cool J, he called up the C-suite and got on the phone with some influential folks there, and they kind of challenged him, like, you think you could do better? And he said, yeah, I think I could. So for the last 5 years, he's been personally curating Channel 43 on Sirius XM, and immediately it became one of their top 5 stations. So the light kind of went off, and he realized now is the time for timeless and classic hip hop. Or 5 years ago, he kind of saw what was coming. And so he got together with a lot of his friends and peers, some of which were not household names, some of which are, and they pooled their money and they started a lifestyle and legacy brand called Rock the Bells. People like DJ Kool Herc, who is credited with inventing hip hop, and people like Eminem, who is a household name, are all part of the company. But LL is the CEO. He's very much my boss. Sometimes he FaceTimes with no warning, which is great. Sometimes it's unnerving, but it's fun to show people. But at any rate, we've had quite a wild ride. So,
Awesome. Well, why don't we give the crowd a flavor of who Rock the Bells actually is? Let's play the video.
sure.
LL Cool J is hard as hell. Battle anybody, I don't care, you tell. Gonna go sell double almost.
Celebrating happy 50th anniversary to hip hop, baby. Yo, we out here in Coachella with ladies having a ball, baby.
Boy Terrence J.
Send me a video of you spitting your favorite bars from a female MC.
And make sure you send me a good verse, because y'all know how I get.
Rock the bell.
I love collaborations and rock the bells. We just getting started.
It's beautiful, and everyone keep driving.
You wrote
Right here, JD Kiss. This is Big Snoop
Rock
Dogg.
the Bells.
Radio. This is Roxanne Shante.
We have De La Soul, mighty Mount Westmore in the building. Uncle L, what's up, man?
We are the champions of hip hop. Our vow is to uplift this culture and celebrate the spirit that inspired and built it. Our vision is an elevated culture. Our mission is to do it with creativity and integrity. We celebrate the people, the places, the things, the spirit that made hip hop so revered. This is our passion. This is in our DNA. This is our responsibility. Real talk. This is our destiny.
That was awesome. So, Adam, LL Cool J said in there, the mission is to elevate culture. Talk to us a little bit about the 5 pillars that you have in terms of how you all are working with brands to put brands at the center of culture.
Absolutely. So we were really blessed this year as a company to be able to celebrate the 50th anniversary of hip hop. And I'm sure none of you missed it. A lot was made of it. A lot of people cashed in on it, and that's great. But I think, you know, for LL and for the other people invested in the company, you know, for them, and especially for Todd, which is his actual name, which is weird to call him sometimes, but he has a vision where he really wants 50 years from now for him and his friends to have a firm handle on how hip hop is talked about. And so, you know, when he brought me over, I spent most of my adult life at Rolling Stone, and there's a lot of pure analogies between how classic rock has been packaged and marketed, and how classic hip hop could or should be packaged and marketed. And I think, you know, Todd and his friends are very thoughtful about, you know, how that needs to be. But there are 5 main pillars, as you said, or 5 levers that we can pull for brands. And for some of our biggest brand partners up there, Procter & Gamble, PepsiCo, you know, Toyota, we've pulled all of them. And so first and foremost is experiential. We have something called Rock the Bells Festival that in the 90s, a lot of people had an experience with that was very positive. They were operating without LL Cool J's you know, consent, using his intellectual property, but they're using it really well. And so being the guy he is, he didn't want to throw cold water on it. He really does believe in the culture, and he believes in the future of hip hop. So, you know, when they went defunct on their own, just through mismanagement, he retained the rights, brought them back, and used it for the Sirius XM station. But we have brought Rock the Bells Festival back to prominence for the last 2 years. Our title sponsor this year was Procter & Gamble and Walmart, which we're exceptionally proud of. Mars was also a category exclusive partner, which was huge for us, with M&Ms. So that felt great. But we also show up under important cultural tentpoles. You saw a massive boat on the screen. That was an Art Basel party that we threw 2 years in a row with our friends at Cheetos, where we made original artwork with Cheeto dust using a graffiti artist, and actually sold it for an ungodly amount of money. We sold all the pieces of art, but more importantly, it made great content, which is the next lever that we can pull. We have a deep bench of storytellers, both from digital publishing, places like Refinery 29, Complex, but also from Hollywood. There's a gentleman who works with me who's got production credits on everything from The Woman King to Aviator to Ali. And so we're able to make short form content and long form content that, you know, is snackable and also something that you can spend a lot of time with. You saw merch up there. We're very proud of our merchandise and licensing. We're in a lot of Gaps, a lot of Nordstroms, a lot of Walmarts. We actually have a shipper unit we did aligned with our festival, where we're in 1,600 Walmart stores with Rock the Bells Festival branding, curating, I believe, 7 different Procter & Gamble products that we felt were correct for you know, the core hip hop target, and specifically the African American community. Brands like King C. Gillette, My Black is Beautiful, and even Head and Shoulders. And, you know, having Method Man as one of the performers at Rock the Bells Festival allowed us a moment to create branded content where he literally interfaced with one of the Procter & Gamble spokespersons and asked about the ingredients and Head and Shoulders, and it just made like a very amazingly authentic piece of content that really resonated. And that kind of segues into talent. Like, not only do people like Todd and, you know, DJ Kool Herc and Rev Run and Salt and Pepper, who are all part of our company, make themselves available for brand work, we're able to reach out to people who aren't part of our company because they see what we're building, and I think they see that it's good for hip hop, and they're willing to work with us. You know, not for free, but perhaps in a more friendly way than if the brand was to reach out to them on their own. So a great example is 2 weeks ago I was at Alabama State, which is a HBCU, with 2 Chainz, and we did a performance series and a mini documentary for an automotive brand, which I'll be able to kind of announce soon. But just the authenticity and the excitement of the students chanting every word of his songs and also chanting my brand, which was kind of nice. But more importantly, the automotive brand, you know, was a really great moment. And so I think 2 Chainz was more willing to work with our brand because of who owns us. So, oh, and then distribution. On a case-by-case basis, we can access several different rappers who are in our orbit, their actual blue checkmark social footprint. We call it the Rock the Bells Network. We're a little bit careful about how open, you know, like we talk to brands about who we're going to use for each project, but, you know, on a stage, I'm not going to name check everyone, but it gives us tens of millions of actual hip hop fans to target with authentic content. So needless to say, LL Cool J is part of it.
So it sounds like a really fun brand. I'll start there. This session is all about growth, trends, and predictions for the future. So as we think about growth trends and what all the marketers here in this room might be thinking about for 2024, when we were chatting a bit yesterday, one of the trends that you talked about, Adam, was the influence of youth into culture. So tell us a little bit about how we think about that as a trend for growth in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge and an opportunity, not only for our brand, but for most of the brands in the room. I think everyone wants to target younger because everyone wants to continually grow their tribe, right? And so when you enter into something like, classic hip hop or timeless hip hop, and this is the same challenge I had at Rolling Stone years ago, there's a tendency to canonize the past. And that's really cool when it's a 50th anniversary, right? But it's really important to keep growing that bigger audience. And so, we're always looking for ways to do that. We think that right now there's someone in a studio laying down a debut track who is absolutely going to be part of hip hop's legacy and hopefully even part of Rock the Bell's legacy. And so we have a unique ability, I believe, and I've shared this with LL, to really curate, elevate, and champion who that next person is. Okay, we'll go back and forth. But I think one great example of that is what I just mentioned with the HBCU program. We've done a couple. We did one recently with Corday, and we did one recently with 2 Chainz. We're extremely proud of those. It's really simple to talk to a 20-something person on a college campus because that's who's there. But seeing classic and timeless hip hop resonate with them where they know every word is great. And also those are 2 examples of younger artists who already have a catalog that feels simultaneously young and classic. The other thing that we're doing, and it's really exciting, is leaning into the Olympics. So I was just in Paris last week with a financial services brand who I'll announce later. But hip-hop is going to be part of the Olympics in a very big way because breakdancing is now an Olympic sport in 2024 in Paris. And so we've been approached by the Olympic Committee, by folks at NBC, and then by individual brands as well, because authenticity is so important, especially when you're talking about that community and this form of self-expression. Brands do not want to walk into this alone. They want to walk in with someone who has a deep bench of credibility, and so we certainly have that.
Now, this word authenticity, let's talk about this for a second, because when it comes to youth and youth culture, this word gets thrown out quite a bit, right? We certainly think about youth at the Invisalign brand, and authenticity gets thrown around like candy. Tell us a little bit about what authenticity actually means, and what does it look like for our marketers so that we can both recognize it and then also create it ourselves?
Sure. I think one of the reasons it's so important, first of all, is we're living in a world where people are losing faith in just about everything. Certainly in institutions, unfortunately in journalism, and even sometimes in brands, God forbid, right? One thing that they do have faith in is their heroes and the heroes of self-expression that they look up to. And so, hip hop has a unique ability to rally people and unite people, like all music. I just think that hip hop at this moment in history happens to be the most relevant and prolific form of music because it sort of transcends music. Like if I'm talking to a brand and they're like, I don't have a music pillar, I can immediately segue into sports because hip hop is certainly sports. I can immediately segue into visual art because hip hop touches visual art, fashion, even food with people like Bun B, who you saw on the screen. He's a foodie entrepreneur. So, we can do that and be authentic even outside of music. But I think, authenticity really starts with the voice of the person expressing themselves. And because we're a company owned by those very voices, we're very blessed to have that unique ability to cut through the clutter and also to immediately engage with the consumer.
That's awesome. So we've covered off on authenticity as a trend for the future. You talked to us a little bit about youth. I also know that you're a believer in the power of credibility.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how credibility is a growth trend and how is it different than authenticity?
Sure. So, and this is just me, you know, this is my own personal view, but I think authenticity feels a little bit more subjective, whereas credibility feels more objective, you know? And I think a lot about, you know, your brand, Invisalign, and how, you know, you have objective scientists working around the clock to create objective innovations that, you know, you have incredible data. I believe you told me that you have 80% less emergency dental visits
Look at that.
is that right?
That's right.
Well, I
that's
remembered
right.
it because I have a 12-year-old daughter. So we're getting ready for braces time, and it resonated with me. But, you know, when I think about credibility in the hip hop space, you know, the reality is, despite how I may appear, this is a company that is in fact a minority business enterprise, which means that it's owned, you know, by people who are not white. And I think that's really important in this period in time, especially when you're trading in a piece of art and in a name and likeness that is rooted in that culture. And so, you know, we immediately, when I came in the door, I was like, we need to get certified. Shout out to the people at Pepsi for helping us do that. I thought that was really important. That's an important piece of credibility. But it goes further than, you know, the color or ethnicity of who owns us. It's also, again, the fact that we're a company created by and run by and directed by the people who created the culture, I think is really important. I felt that that was important when I was working at Rolling Stone, just to have, you know, Jan Wenner at the helm as someone who, you know, started that brand right here. And I felt that same way when I went to work for LL Cool J, as someone who, you know, was on the streets of Queens at the very inception of hip hop. There's something that that credibility, which is very objective, is something that translates into authenticity.
That's awesome. So Adam just covered off on 3 key takeaways here, right? As we think about trends for driving growth in the future. The first is tapping into youth and youth culture. Second, he covered off on how to ensure that the authentic stories are being told as an accelerator of that growth. And then the force multiplier at the end is bringing home the credibility, whatever that looks like for any one of our brands, because we are all working on different kinds of brands. So with that, I think we've got a few minutes for questions. Who's got a question for Adam?
Hi, Adam. Alex Flagg from Hewlett Packard Enterprise. I'm just wondering, so, you know, a long time ago, there was this, when people started using samples in hip hop, you know, there's a lot of hating on that, you know, and it's like, you know, it's kind of cheating, but now you can't, you know, listen to a song without samples in it. Do you see the same thing, fast forwarding 10 years from now, happening with AI and sort of the integration of, you know, kind of incorporating, I don't know, Tupac in your song, you know, that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's happening already. I mean, I listened to a track that someone made the other day where they mashed up Little John with Frank Sinatra, and it was awesome. But after you listen to it a couple times and laughed really hard, it kind of sounded a little hollow. And something that LL said back in August when I watched him do a panel like this, he said AI can approximate, you know, the mechanics of the musician or the rapper, but they can't approximate the spirit. And I thought that sounded a little like touchy-feely, but I also kind of know what he means, because as fun as it is to hear Frank Sinatra rap from the window to the wall, it didn't seem genuine. So I do think it's going to be an issue. But I also think what's interesting about your question with you know, sampling is the fact that hip hop's already in a place where people are sampling the sample. So, you know, there's Eazy-E songs that are now being turned into Megan Thee Stallion songs, you know, and LL has a show about exactly that on our Channel 43 Sirius XM channel called Salute the Sample. And I had the pleasure of sitting in on that recently with none other than Uncle Luke. For those of you who are uninitiated, there was Luther Campbell from Two Live Crew, and he broke down some of the samples from some of his biggest songs, which are not brand safe. And what was amazing about him is he just didn't even try to clear the samples with legal. He just went for it. What do they say? It's better to beg forgiveness and ask permission. That's how that man lived his life. But yeah, I think that's one of the more fascinating parts, because initially people felt like that was the most crass part of hip hop, is this idea of stealing art. And I think what people have slowly realized is it's not stealing at all. It's reinterpreting it and making it your own. And now we're seeing that echo from rap song to rap song in kind of a cool way.
Yeah, that's super cool. Any other questions in the back?
Thanks. You shared some of the brand partnership work that you've done, and you also talked about the importance of what authenticity means to Rock the Bells and your founders and the community that you serve. What is important for brands to think about? You just said the word brand safety, and that's very subjective. But a lot of people can say, well, I don't want to be in a context where there's bad language or certain subject matter. How do you talk to brands, and who's doing it right, that need to get over the hump of what are previously conceived notions of where they want the context of their brand to be, to actually be a part of that authentic culture building phenomena that you have?
It's a really great question. There's a couple different prongs to it. I don't think everyone has figured out the perfect answer yet, but I do know where we've seen success. And so I think there is an extreme comfort level for brands when it comes to artists that have been around for a long time. And again, I've seen this outside of the genre of hip hop, but I've certainly seen it inside. Like, it's completely fine for Keith Richards to be a drug user openly and unabashedly, and to appear near a brand, and people are fine with it because I think their father listened to the Rolling Stones. So somehow that's okay. But if someone from Tame Impala was to talk about drug use, it becomes, whoa, pull my ad away from that, you know? There is some of that going on in hip hop as well, where I think people are like, oh, the current hip hop is so edgy and concerning. And then, you know, older hip hop is extraordinarily brand safe, completely forgetting the days of NWA. So we're really blessed in a way that we are trading in classic hip hop, because not only from a brand perspective, but from a consumer perspective, it feels safer. I also think that, you know, it's really helpful with a lot of these companies that have multicultural divisions, because they're able to sort of block and tackle for the CMO and really help explain, you know, what is going to be concerning to the audience and what's not. And I think, you know, they've been invaluable for us, because I believe that while a lot of our programs resonate most deeply in multicultural communities, there's no doubt now that hip hop is so ubiquitous that, you know, it is part of the mainstream culture. So once we kind of figure it out for that community, we've found that it resonates really well outside of that community in a way that everyone feels comfortable with.
I'll just add one thing. It's a struggle, for sure. But I think, Adam, you said it best, and the word community really comes to mind. I think brands have the opportunity, and we struggle with this a lot, but where we found success is getting to know the communities with whom we want to connect with. Because if we don't understand those communities, the language, the culture, the slang, the nuances, we stand zero chance of connecting in with them. And that requires a lot of courage to let go of some of the truisms that have been true for so long for the brand. And it requires some sell-in as well into the management teams to help them understand what that's gonna look like, and that it is gonna look different. So with that, let's give it up for Adam.